So many of you may or may not realize that this past December marked the 13-year anniversary of the Sandy Hook tragedy, where so many young lives were lost as a result of that shooting in the Sandy Hook Elementary. And so today we are just honored to bring Nicole Hockley, who's talking about what has come from that tragedy and the loss of the life of her beautiful child, Dylan. So I do want you to know we're going to talk about gun violence. We're going to talk about the loss of a child. We're going to talk about suicide and lots of hard topics. So please do take care of yourself. There is hope. There's good news in the work that Nicole and some of the other parents are doing with the Sandy Hook Promise Foundation. So it's a good episode, but it can be a little bit challenging to hear these things.
Yeah, Marcy and I have known, we've been trying to get Nicole on for a little while now, so we knew this was going to be a tough discussion for everyone, but hopefully there's a little glimmer of some good things that are coming as a result of Dylan. Dylan, she describes in this episode as being a little butterfly, so you want to listen in because that story will touch everyone. But anyway, everybody take care and make sure you listen in on this one.
The world is a lot right now. Are you feeling it? We all need new tools to help us walk through the chaos with grace, ease, and compassion for each other and for ourselves. In this podcast, you'll hear from parents, educators, and other experts who can bring perspective to the monumental job of parenting. It's time to level up and be warriors for our kids and our communities. This is the Warrior Parent Podcast. I'm Marcy Mitchell.
And I'm Debbie DeMano. As parents, we understand that it really does take a village to raise our kids. We hope that this podcast serves to create and support that community for you. Join us as we discuss and practice our core tools, which are proven mind-body techniques that can be used by anyone to improve your life on a daily basis.
Welcome back to the Warrior Parent Podcast. Thank you for joining us. It is such a pleasure and an honor for us to be part of this community that we're all creating here. So thank you for being in this community as well. Today is going to be a special conversation for us. We have Nicole Hockley on, and she is the CEO and co-founder of Sandy Hook Promise. She is also the mother of Dylan, who was killed in the Sandy Hook tragedy in 2011. She has spent the past 13 years transforming personal heartbreak into national impact. Through Sandy Hook Promise, SHP, she leads one of the most influential nonpartisan organizations dedicated to preventing violence in schools, homes, and community. And that is some very, very important work. So thank you so much, Nicole, for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Wow. I don't even know where to begin, Nicole. First of all, just a shout out for your bravery. I don't know how much you've listened to Marcy and my podcast, but we have interviewed several parents who have lost children. And so we are familiar with this. We also do suicide training. I don't know if you know that or not. So I think we're a little bit on the same wavelength here about being able to do something about this horrific situation, especially here in the United States. But I want you to tell us a little bit of your story. I'm sure it's never easy, but I think everyone needs to hear the story, and then we'll kind of go from there.
No, I appreciate that. And there is a very clear line in my life, the before and after. The before December 14th, when I was just a parent dealing with the beautiful chaos of parenthood every day, and play dates and homework at the kitchen table and all of that sort of stuff. And then 12-14, and then both of my children were at the school that day. Jake, my eldest, was in third grade at the time. He survived and is thriving and doing wonderfully well, thank God. And my youngest, Dylan, was 6 at the time when he was killed in his first grade classroom. And the after, I think it reshapes your DNA in many respects.
Absolutely.
And so the after is where I learned about advocacy and gun violence prevention, and doing everything I could to, honor the legacy of my son that was killed and protect the future for my son that survived. And that's been my whole reason for being the last 13 years.
I in preparation, I was listening to your TED talk, and you were eloquently, and this was probably only 3 years after it happened or so,
Yeah,
or
that was when I still before I started dyeing my hair blonde. So it was quite a while
yes,
ago now.
yeah. I'm like, I
Yeah.
had to do a double
Yeah.
take. Yeah,
I think it
like
was around 2014,
yeah.
2015. Yeah.
Mm,
But I was imagining you in that moment. Like here it is only 3 years after, and here you are standing on this stage and having this discussion, which was, telling your story, but then so bravely talking about how we can move forward, that
mm,
this is preventative. And that is so much of the work that Marcy and I do is on the prevention side,
Hmm.
not just of school shootings, but all kinds of other things. I want to dive in a little bit on some of the things that you talked about. So one of those is you talk about, like, if I think you said, well, if you think I'm here to talk about no guns, I'm not going to do it. And if you think I'm
Hmm.
here to talk about mental health, it's not just about that. So Marcy and I err on the side of mental health. And as I suggested, we do a lot of pre-work with suicides. And so talk about what you teach people with the programs that you have now, about the recognition of the signs and that sort of thing.
Yeah, thanks for that. One of the things I learned early on is, there's a lot of solutions around how we can stop gun violence, but the vast majority of them are reactive. It's
Yes.
what do we
mm,
do after a tragedy's happened, or what
mhm,
can we do
Yes.
in terms of security or hardening, which is really when the danger is there at the door.
yes.
It's really not focusing on, nobody wakes up and says, I'm going to shoot up a school today. This is
Mhm,
the
Yeah.
end state of an escalation of events. And when we talk about, and the more I've learned about, the pathway to violence and how the earlier we can get someone help, the less likely they're ever going to pick up any means of weapon to hurt themselves or to hurt someone else. And everyone thinks
mhm,
about, the school shootings and the suicide and homicide that's at one extreme end of that pathway.
Right.
But it really starts with something that's a lot quieter. It starts with isolation and loneliness and hopelessness. And that can
Yeah.
escalate into all sorts of forms of other self harm or violence or
Yeah.
negative thoughts and pathways. And those are all opportunities to intervene. So we teach young people, students, and the adults around them, how do you recognize when someone could be going into crisis and needs help? And then what do you do to help them get the help that they need? Um, and for us, it can be as simple as seeing someone and saying hello and making a connection. And it sounds
Yes.
yeah.
so simple. And sometimes the kids laugh at that, but it's like you just never know what sort of day someone's having. And that simple act of being seen, being heard, feeling valued can
Yeah.
completely change the
Yeah.
trajectory of the rest of that day or their life, even. So
And
Yeah,
we,
that's
you know,
empathy.
yeah.
yeah, it is. It's empathy.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah,
shouldn't have to teach it, but it's a muscle that sometimes we need to
we
remember how
do.
to use. So
Yes. And honestly, I think it's very natural, but sometimes we teach it out of kids. We come up with these other ideas that, you need to win and you need to be on top. And instead of
yeah,
saying nurture that idea where you look and you see, because I think small children do, they look at another one, they see him crying, they might go up and give him a hug. Like it's a natural response,
Yeah.
but
absolutely.
we should encourage it. We should celebrate empathy and compassion, not just so that we don't have gun violence, but just so that everyone can feel seen
Yeah.
and heard and
Just
live their best life.
be a good person.
Exactly.
That is not too
Yeah,
much of an ask.
Yeah.
it
We
really
will.
isn't.
So much of what Marcy and I have tried to do with the work that we do is around social emotional learning, and
Mhm.
believe it or not, that has become political in the United States. And in fact, I got certified, if you will, as a social emotional trauma informed teacher. And we were trying to get into schools, and because of all the nonsense, people were like, yeah, I don't know. You do this thing called SEL, and we heard maybe that's not good. And so, anyway, we've been really, really frustrated with all of that. I'm sure you've seen in the last so many years,
Oh
this
yeah.
this change, right?
Yeah.
Which and in other countries, believe it or not, they do teach these things. They do teach social emotional learning. They teach empathy, and it's part of a curriculum. And
Yeah.
somehow we don't think that is important. I mean, we think that that is root cause for all of this. I'm curious
Absolutely.
your thoughts.
100% agree. It's disturbing how certain words have been politicized or co-opted to mean something that they
Yeah.
don't mean at all. I mean, social emotional learning and wellness, these are important life skills
Yeah.
for
Yes.
how do we regulate our emotions? How do we resolve conflicts peacefully? How do we know how to process and communicate our feelings? This isn't wokeness. This isn't liberalness. This is just common human life skills
Yes.
that
Humanity.
humanity, and we all have it in us. It's just sometimes you need to practice it. So the words, I mean, people can debate about words and semantics all the time. It doesn't change the fact that kids need it. So whatever it has to be called, that's what it's going to
Yes.
be called,
It's,
because that's what kids need to practice and learn and really use it practically every day.
yeah. You talk about these four pieces of you talk about that no one just wakes up one day and thinks they're going to shoot a school. And so there are these things that sort of go on. You talk about
Mhm.
number one, violence as an expression. Number two, manipulation. Number three, retaliation. And number four, hopelessness. So those are a
Mhm.
little bit about what we're talking about, but talk about those specific pieces and how you sort of came up with that
Yeah, well,
as a model.
I certainly didn't invent it.
Yeah.
This came through, this
Yes.
came through a lot of research from
Yeah.
behavior scientists. This came through a lot of research with other social workers and people that are specialists in threat assessment and case management.
Mm.
And really, after 12, 14, there was a period there where my mom joked that I was possibly one of the most boring people on the planet,
Oh,
because every single book I was reading was about why do kids kill and about youth
Mm.
violence and about mental health struggles. And I still read a lot of those books because there is a huge amount of information out there. And sometimes it's just, how do you translate that into something that can be a simple curriculum to teach in schools?
Yes.
And
yes.
that was our approach in terms of taking all this evidence-based knowledge, all of this research, and saying, okay,
Right.
well, what does that mean to a 10-year-old in terms of
Yes.
how do we create connection? Or how do we learn to recognize when someone needs help, say on social media? And then what do we do about it? And for adults, how do we teach them what it means to be a trusted adult and take actions if
Hmm.
someone comes to you? So these forms of like the signs that we teach, and we're very clear that it's very rarely one single sign. Sometimes it
Yes.
can be incredibly overt in terms of, I am going to shoot up a school. That is
Yes.
Right.
something that needs to be taken very seriously. And certainly we've had tips where people have been posting that before and they did mean to shoot up a school. But sometimes it's much more subtle in terms of someone who's withdrawing or having extreme behavior changes over time, or is being bullied or is a bullier, and isn't able to, overreacts to minor transgressions in a way that is, because they can't regulate their emotions. We teach them, kids and the adults around them, how to look at these types of signs and say, not asking you to diagnose what the problem is. It's more like something's going on in this person's life
Yes.
and
Yeah.
they need some help. So say something to
Yeah.
someone, make a connection, get them the help that they need, let them know that they're not alone, that they are seen, and that someone cares
Yeah.
enough to do something about that.
We always say that awareness is the first step to any kind of growth. And so that's really it. And, a lot of times we're talking about self-awareness where you realize, oh, I'm doing something that I don't really like, or I'm showing up in a way I don't like. Let me look at that. And, that could be, that's something to teach kids, but that's somehow where that parenting can come in, where we see that, we hear the language that's showing that something
Mhm.
is just not, they're not feeling happy and comfortable, and there's something that's in the way of that, and to be able to look at it with them, and then know that there are resources, that you don't necessarily have to fix it, but number one, seeing something's up, and then number two, hearing them, seeing them, giving them that opportunity to
Yeah,
speak about it before it escalates to whatever that next level. And I think we can all
absolutely.
do that. Yeah, we can all look
Yeah,
at someone and just say, tell me what's going on. And then here's another thing that I talk about a lot. When your kid says certain things, as a mother or father, we're like, I go into, shouldn't say everyone, but I feel like some people will resonate with this. Like, no, you're not that, or that can't be right, or and
yeah,
that feels like the way to fix it. And we're not there for that. Sometimes we need to hear them.
yeah. You got to
Yeah.
just validate their
Yes.
experience without
Yes.
judgment and just accept it.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, like, my surviving son's now 21. We definitely went through some challenging teenage years.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness,
And,
I'm
Yeah.
I
sure.
think there's very few parents that probably don't go through challenging moments
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Yeah.
with
That
adolescents and
that's
teens.
their job. I always
That
say as a
Yeah.
teenager.
And I'm
Yeah.
That's
sure
what
we were all challenging
that's
when we
what
were
they're
that
supposed to
age
do.
as well.
Yeah.
That's part of
Absolutely.
finding yourself and figuring
Yeah.
Yes.
yourself out. But yeah, it can be easy to kind of diminish or try to fix or say,
Yeah.
oh, that's today, it's not going to be tomorrow, everything will be better tomorrow, when really we just need to listen and say,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry you're going through this. Let's talk about it.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and let's work through this together.
Yeah.
It's weird to me that it's that hard. It's that simple, what you're sharing, but it's so challenging to do it. And so I just would really encourage parents who are listening, just people, if you're listening, that is a skill we need to work on, to be able to not try to fix people, not try to go into problem solving, but to really listen to them and then let them know that you're hearing it. And not just
Yeah.
saying words like, oh, that must be hard, but feeling that, like, wow, that really does sound challenging, and say more, tell me more about that, and let them express it. And
Yeah.
that's it's amazing. It's like a magic formula for people. Once they feel heard, it allows that next step.
Yeah. Well, I guess when you're heard, when you genuinely feel heard, that's also a bridge towards trust. And that's going
Yes.
to
Mm.
enable you to express more and open up more,
Right.
and be more open to help. So that's
Yeah.
so super important.
Whoops.
Yeah,
Sorry.
more of that,
Not
more
a
of
lot of
that.
that. Yes. Trust.
And
Hard to come
it
by.
goes back to what you said a moment ago about being that trusted adult. And so we can ask ourselves these questions. And, when we're talking about gun violence and children in schools and their safety, we've leveled up to a level of importance that hopefully will get people's attention, because
Mm-hmm.
our children, they're just a part of us. So when your kid comes and says something that somehow is triggering you, or your ego is saying no, remember that you're meant to be that trusted person for them to talk to. So sort of stop your internal, like, I want to say this, I need to,
Yeah.
you gotta do that work so that they can show up and listen. And you can say, you know what, this is hard for me right now. But I want to hear you. So just let me take a few breaths. All right, now you talk and I'm going to listen, or whatever it takes. Because if we just go into that the way we've always done it, we're not talking about that, or that's not okay, or you're fine. Now you've slammed a door in your child's face, and now they're escalating on that, what you call the pathway to violence,
Mm-hmm.
versus de-escalating on what could be a pathway to healing. And
Absolutely.
Hey, it's Marcy from the Warrior Parent Podcast. I just wanted to share with you that we have some changes coming up. We are shifting from doing our podcast every Thursday, as we have for the past 2.5 years. We're moving as of February to a every other week format. And that's because we are working on our first book, which is a big lift, and we love doing it, but we just have a limited amount of bandwidth, and we are trying to take care of ourselves and our sanity. So you're going to see us every 2 weeks, every other Thursday for the Warrior Parent Podcast. And then stay tuned for our new book, which will be coming out sometime in the future. These are such challenging times. We're happy to share them with you, to walk through some of the things that you are walking through as a parent, as a human, as a woman, as a man, going through all of the things emotionally and sometimes physically, and just trying to walk with our heads held high, with our vision, our values at forefront, and staying awake and aware and doing what's ours to do. So keep joining us, and we look forward to talking with you and some of the fantastic guests that we have coming up. I will see you on the Warrior Parent Podcast.
It
yeah,
is
go
these
ahead.
moments. And I think
Yeah.
especially when one of your children or a child comes to you and says, I need help, or that's important. It's also, I think, important for for us as parents or caregivers to lean in and ask questions. And it can be
Mm-hmm.
hard with some kids who, how was your day? Good. What did you do today? Nothing. The one,
Yeah.
but you have to be a
Especially
little bit,
boys.
especially boys for
Yes.
sure. And sometimes it's hard to distinguish what's
Yeah.
typical boy
Yeah.
and what is
Yes.
something troubling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I also always encourage people to like lean in and
Yeah.
be curious, start
Oh,
conversations,
so
say,
good.
what are you seeing
Yes.
online? How does this make you feel? Or like my son, whenever there's another school shooting in the news, for
Mm.
example, I know I'm incredibly triggered.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I will share with him and say, how are you feeling today? This is a hard moment for me. This is how I'm experiencing it. What are you feeling? And it's okay to show your own vulnerability as well and
Mm-hmm.
model that for your child, but being
Yes.
curious about them and asking questions and inviting that conversation so that they're then again feeling more and more like my mom or dad's interested in me.
Yeah.
They care, they want to
Yeah.
help. I can go to them. So it's parenting's a
Yes.
hard job, but it's so important.
Yeah.
It is. It really is. And one other thing that's coming into my mind as you say that when you're asking that how are you doing and you're checking in, sometimes you're going to hear some hard stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where sometimes our instinct might be to shut it down because we don't want to look at it. But remember that it's important to make that space, but then also you're not alone. And if what they say to you is more than you can deal with, get some help,
Yeah,
reach
absolutely.
out, find some resources. What can you share as far as maybe some resources for parents who hear things that really are out of their initial talent zone or gift zone and they don't know what to do with it?
Yeah, well, I know there's a lot of resources on our website, sandyhookpromise.org, and we also
Mm.
have links to other trusted resources as well, because we get a lot of questions from parents like,
Yeah.
at what age do I talk to my child about school shootings?
Mm.
What do I say if they've seen this in the news? What do I say when they're showing me this screenshot from a Snapchat, for example, and they're really concerned about something? And
Mm.
the fact that even they're asking, oh my gosh, what do I do, is a great step in itself because it means that
Yes.
they're caring enough to want to do
Yeah.
something. But there are a
Yes.
lot of resources available on how to have these conversations. And a lot of it does just boil down to the same thing in terms of listening, validating, allowing them to
Yeah.
express without shutting down. I mean, if I had to distill all the resources, those would be some of the key things that it all comes
Mm-hmm.
down to. And then get different, depending on what they're bringing to you, get different help as needed.
So
Yes.
you have had a lot of success with your
Mhm.
Sandy Hook Promise. You give some statistics out on your website about the people who are involved with Sandy Hook Promise. Talk a little bit about that, or maybe give some stories
Yeah,
about.
we're super fortunate that our programs have scaled at a very fast rate. So
Mm.
cumulatively, I think we've had about 44 million participants in our training from all 50 states so far. And that includes some
Wow.
repeat training. So kind of what that looks like on an annual basis, like last year, there were 12 million individual participants. So it grows and
Wow.
grows a little bit each year. And those are our programs like Start with Hello and Say Something. But we also have a tool called the Anonymous Reporting System, which is part of our Say Something program that currently
Mm.
serves around 9 million kids. And that is basically if a young person or an adult, we have adults tip in as well, if they're seeing or hearing something that is concerning them, or they're concerned about their friend, or they've seen something in general on social media, they can report it anonymously to our crisis center, which is based in Miami, Florida. It's 24/7, 365. And
Mm.
it looks like an app that it looks like a text chain between the child and the counselor. And we've had, I think we're close to 350,000 tips since we
Oh,
Wow.
launched that 6 years ago. But that's led to about 3,500 mental health interventions where a child actually needed hospitalization,
Wow.
around 1,200 imminent youth suicides stopped because we were able to get them the help. And
Well
as of
done.
this past September, 19 credible planned school shootings that because people tipped into our system, and then we then confirmed it with school teams and local law enforcement that this was a credible threat and had plans and means and access to weapons. it was confirmed as something that was about to happen. So that's, 19, at least 19 Sandy Hooks that have not happened. So I'm incredibly
Oh my
proud
goodness.
of our work and impact, and we're just scaling
Absolutely.
as fast as we can. So
Unbelievable. I
That's
love
amazing.
what you said on your podcast too, or not your podcast, excuse me, your TED Talk. You talked about, people have choice around this, right? And so I think for so many of us, and me to be included, sometimes I can't even turn on the television, number one. Number two, if that school shooting shows up, I just collapse. I go numb. I can't talk. I can't do anything. And so it's a decision that people have to make. It's a choice to say, you know what, like I'm going to get involved. I'm going to be part of,
yeah,
your organization, or I'm going to go talk to kids in the community, or I'm going to do something, right? And I think, I mean, you would think with the numbers that you're showing and sharing with us that we would have turned this thing on its head, right? But we kind of haven't. We're still having
mm.
it.
We
It's
are
bad.
definitely still having it. And there are, gun violence is actually homicide, murder is actually going down across the United States right now, which is fantastic news.
Yep.
But I also see, the younger generation spending more and more time in the home, on their phone, more isolated. And I think that
Right.
that is going to lead to a different set of circumstances and self-harm and violence that we need to be more prepared for as
Yeah.
parents and as a country, because just because murder is going down doesn't mean that violence and self-harm is going down. In fact,
Yeah.
for our tip line, our anonymous reporting system, we are seeing tips about youth suicide increasing.
Mhm.
So this is, it peaked during COVID for sure. When it became the
Mhm.
number one tip we were getting, it's down to number two now behind bullying, but it's still trending upwards, which
Mhm.
that's a
Mhm.
lot of kids that
Yeah.
are thinking about ending their lives. So
I
Yeah.
don't know if you know
It's
this, but Marcy and I made a participated in a Hollywood film around teens and suicide for COVID. It's called Never Alone,
oh
and
wow.
it was filmed in Southern California. But you might have a look at that, and you could maybe share that too. But yeah, COVID did not help the situation at
No,
all.
we're still feeling the effects of it for sure. Our young
yeah.
people are for sure.
Yeah. And then that coupled with with our phones, basically, with this digital world, and now adding in AI and how that's all. So, we know it's there. But I love that you have a way for people to share these tips,
Mhm.
and and then for parents to find ways to help. It's not inevitable. Like our kids we can
Yeah.
find a balance. We can help them institute some checks and balances within their life to where they find there's time for the things that their phone is helpful for, and that they can
Yeah.
watch some videos or do some things on there, but then also not let it replace their real life and their face-to-face interactions, and their time outside, time with their
Yeah.
feet in the ground, or their breathing fresh air, hugging a tree, like whatever that
Yeah.
thing is, that taking a walk, listening to music with friends, all of these things that can remind us that there's so much more to life than this
That's
phone.
that's so true. And
Yeah.
Debbie, you were saying like people feel hopeless about this issue sometimes.
Mm,
Everything that you just talked about, Marcy, are things that we can all do to
we
help our
can.
kids anyway.
Yes.
And also, we have to not accept this narrative that's being pushed down at us from all sides, that this is just the way it is in America.
Yeah.
Agreed.
That
Agreed.
gun violence is an acceptable casualty for our 2A rights. That's just no one is pro gun violence. Absolutely no
Yeah.
one.
Right.
We all want to keep kids safe. And once we can get out of the politics of the conversation and just talk to each other as people and listen to each
Yes.
other with respect and dignity, then there's a lot more
Yeah.
common ground that we can find together. So
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. I would love to hear a little bit about Dylan.
oh yeah, thank you for asking.
Mm,
He, I only had him for 6 years. He would have just turned 20 actually this past weekend, which is kind of
mm,
mind-boggling in so many
Yeah.
ways. But he was autistic, so had communication challenges. But I always considered myself very fortunate that he loved really strong, deep cuddles. Like he could not get close enough. He could not be, sometimes he would just hang on to me like a koala and we would walk around and stuff, even when he was still 6. But he had super bright blue eyes and a great laugh. And part of his autism, I think, enabled me to focus on him in a different way in meeting his needs and trying to understand the way he was experiencing the world around him. So that really opened my eyes in different ways.
Yes.
And he was definitely the glue in our family. He absolutely adored his big brother, Jake. He used to, I don't know if you remember Wii U and like Mario Kart in those games and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Dylan used to practice before Jake would come home so that he could be good enough to play with
Keep
Jake.
up with his brother.
Impress his brother.
It was really sweet. But he was a good boy. I mean, he could be challenging, just like any 6-year-old can be, for sure.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, he's loved and missed every day.
He sounds lovely.
Would you share the butterfly story? I see the butterfly behind you. For those who are watching on YouTube, will you please share that? That's amazing.
I talked about this at Dylan's memorial service. That was 1 week after the shooting, and Dylan, being autistic, different people on the spectrum can sometimes have different repetitive things that they did. And Dylan was a flapper. So whenever he got excited, he would jump up and down and flap his arms. And it was really cute. Sometimes Jake would even copy him. And I asked Dylan once, I said, why do you flap? And I genuinely didn't expect him to answer because of his communication challenges. But he just looked at me and said, because I'm a beautiful butterfly. And I talked about that at his funeral, about the butterfly effect and the theory of a butterfly flapping its wings on one side of the world can create or stop a storm on the other side. And I talked about Sandy Hook and Dylan and the others flapping their wings, and that would create change in our country. And that was part of why 1 month after the shooting, I helped launch Sandy Hook Promise. And I've been on this mission ever since to just honor Dylan and his butterfly and create more butterflies for change.
Beautiful. And I think you've definitely done that. You shared some statistics of all the effects of that flapping of those wings. And that's just amazing. Well done, Nicole.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
How can people find you? How can people find you?
We are easy to find. Go to sandyhookpromise.org, make the promise, which is about protecting kids from gun violence, and figure out what resonates with you, whether it's talking to your schools about bringing our programs, whether it's having a conversation with your child, whether it's just sharing stuff on social media and making yourself more aware, or if you want to advocate for political change and policy change, we do that very effectively as well. So it's really whatever you feel comfortable doing, we're there to support you. So just, go to our website and we're ready to help.
All right.
It's amazing. Thank you so much, Nicole. We really appreciate you having you on and all the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
And now for your core mental health break. This is your opportunity to take a moment to support your mental wellness, your peace of mind, your own ease and grace. Take some time every day to support your mental health. You deserve it, and it matters. Today we're going to journal, and here is your journaling prompt. If I could go anywhere in the world, I would go. Take a few moments, journal about where you would go, feel it, create it. Really think about what would serve you and uplift you. If I could go anywhere in the world, I would go. Enjoy your journaling. Thanks for listening to the Warrior Parent Podcast, which is a production of our nonprofit, Core Experience, who also creates and distributes Core tools. You can find us at coreexperience.org. Make sure you join us next week for another informative conversation to help you and your family show up mindfully, purposefully, and joyfully with each other and in your community.
Our Core Tools platform consists of a number of proven tools and techniques that are designed to reduce stress, anxiety, and overwhelm in spite of what's going on in your world. We want to thank Samuel Hale, LLC, for sponsoring this podcast. Technical and marketing support comes from Inspire Your Brand. Our podcast editor is Justin Beeden. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of the hosts, the producers, or the financial supporters. I'm Debbie DeMano.
And I'm Marcy Mitchell. Thanks for listening. If you resonate with the idea of creating a community to help support kids and families, won't you join us by following the podcast and sharing this episode? You can even write a review. It truly does take a village, and we appreciate you.